So, hello and welcome to another episode of the Bitstocks podcast. And today I have Alex Agut from HandCash, the CEO of HandCash, who's flown in from Madrid, Spain.
Yeah, Madrid, Spain.
So, while I've got you here, mate, fellow BSV supporter, but I feel we're both supporting SV for the same reasons, allowing technology and logic to be our compass as opposed to ideals. But before we get onto those subjects, how are you, mate? What have you been up to?
Oh, fine. Working like crazy and doing some new business deals for other features that we will be adding in the app, like topping up your wallet directly from the app, and other, for the merchant app in a way so you can settle in your local currency. So we are doing this kind of, the business part is not just developing, it's not just creating an app, it's the business, it's around it, that's what matters and what makes the journey,
all the hard work behind the scenes that people for the most part don't appreciate, but it's what turns us great.
Yeah, right? to make things simple, you really have to do a lot of homework.
Yeah, and simplicity, it's quite interesting you say that because our design ethos is really similar. We take a very, very similar approach that simplicity is what this space needs. And any good design, to get something simple, people assume just by the name of being simple, that's an easy thing to do. But to take a process flow and wind it down to ensure that you're capturing what somebody needs to do, but you're delivering it in the most simplest format is really, really difficult. And I think you guys very much have nailed it with what it is that you're doing.
Still on our way.
Over at HandCash. So you're in London for a particular reason though, right? So you said your back end is going to be here.
Yeah, our backend division is going to be here. Yeah,
and in Spain.
Yeah, we'll be the
front end.
Yeah, the front end division, and we also have our headquarters there. And now we're trying to move this division here in London because we have found more people. I mean, the background of the people that you need for the backend. People that understand how to work with servers and Bitcoin and really have this kind of financial background and knowledge. Is not something that you can find in Spain. At least it's not cheap to find in Spain. So many people in Spain, when they're very qualified, they just flee out the country. So it's difficult to find.
I think developers around most countries are very expensive. London is most certainly no exception, but we definitely do have a really good talent pool here.
Yeah,
but it's most certainly no exception in terms of
costings. It is what it is. I mean, it's the main part of our business and it has to be done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into HandCash, which is where you are right now, this is the evolved Alex. What took you up until this point? Because I was looking into your history, right? And something massively gleamed out from your history, which is this Pokemon Go app, right? I was a huge Pokemon fan. Right now, I'm getting my daughter and my son into Pokemon. So Pokemon's a very fresh subject matter in my mind right now because I'm trying to veer them away from, originally it was Peppa Pig, then it was Ben and Holly. I don't know if your Netflix has these shows as well.
Yeah.
So it's Peppa Pig, Ben and Holly, and I've been desperately trying to push my kids to start watching Pokemon. And only the last 3 weeks I've successfully got them to start watching Pokemon. So I'm looking into your
TV show,
So I'm looking into your bio, looking into your profile, and I see that one of the things that you've done is you've built a Pokemon Go app.
Yeah, that was kind of a challenge that we had, Rafa and I, because we've always liked to develop this kind of simple apps, also to demonstrate our design ethos and creative ethos is like just focus on the value proposition on what you're trying to achieve and try to build something that does one thing, but it does it really great. We had at the time we had a sharing economy app that was location based and it sent notification, all that stuff. So we kind of used that approach to Pokemon Go when it was launched. And we said, what if you could be alerted of the Pokemon that are spawning nearby? Because you cannot. There were some Pokemon raiders when it first began, but you had it needed your interaction to be aware of being all day looking at the map and looking for Pokemon. So these other the way we did this was that you could be alerted of the Pokemon that you wanted to be alerted when they spawn nearby. So for each 3, you had to watch an ad or something. So we had ad revenue. Things that we got a couple of cease and desist letters from Google at a certain point when they were shutting down all these radars. And it was...
that also could be one of my next questions. So when I was reading into it, it said Google shut it down somehow, some way, shape or form. What exactly was the issue with it?
Oh, they because we relied on the location of the Pokemon and that we got from another service, and that service was not obtaining the data in a very legal way in terms and conditions. So
how long ago was all of this?
We developed the whole app and released and did all the PR stuff and the brand and everything in 4 days.
That's nuts. And when was this? Beginning of the year? Last year?
July 2017 or so, when it was launched. Right when it was launched. We saw the opportunity and we thought it would be fun, and we spent like 4 days.
I remember it's very clear. When Pokemon Go first came out, there's a very large park near where I live in London, and it was a surreal experience. You're seeing grown men, grown women, my age, my demographic. I'm not looking down on it. I wanted to jump out of the car and see what the hell this was all about and join them when I realized that they were trying to hunt Pokemon, right? Yeah. But it's just nuts. You just had a bunch of grown adults running around a big, open, empty space.
I've never seen anything like that in my life, and I doubt that we will ever see something like that. I mean, when the app wasn't even released in Spain, people were downloading the APK.
Yeah.
The raw APK, and everybody was playing 1 week before, and that tells you that's telling, because if you ask people to download an APK or wherever, they might find it difficult. But when there's the need, people do whatever it takes, and that's something that we'll learn with that.
Yeah. So
it was very interesting.
Clearly very tech centric, right? And nerdy, geeky, like most people in Bitcoin. But how did Bitcoin first come on your radar?
Okay, we were we were leading the AI division in Spain for
Accenture, right?
Yeah. And it's not that we were bored there, but it's not the same working for a big company as when you have a startup. That when you have a startup, you can be 24 hours a day working. So it was just a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
So we were, we wanted to do something else, and we started looking at this technology that we've always been curious about, because in our previous startup was a sharing economy app. We thought, if we could integrate payments easily for this kind of small payments, and we thought about Bitcoin might be good for that, but we never digged into it because we weren't sure about the legal implications.
Whenabouts was this? How long ago was this?
It was 2015, something like that. So 2015 it was. Yeah, it wasn't. We didn't get in touch with Bitcoin directly, but we were looking at it. But we found it so complicated, and nobody's going to be willing to use this as a payment method. So 2 years later, 2017 is when we were in Accenture, and we thought, okay, what if the same way that we have this Pokemon app, we saw a very interesting app in this show, Black Mirror.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was that chapter where there was kind of a social rating. You remember the chapter? So they could swap the contacts just by tapping the phones. Yeah. So we developed that app, the same app, and we launched it in Google Play. And we saw because Rafa found a way to kind of override the Android Beam NFC. It's kind of a menu or something like that. When you touch both phones, it appeared an Android menu, and it kind of messed up with the experience. So Rafa found a way to get rid of that, to override it. So when we were in Accenture, we saw what if we could send money with this. And we started looking at Bitcoin because, it's programmable money. You can embed it anywhere and transfer it. In the most weird scenarios, you can transfer it with NFC, Bluetooth, and anything works. So we tried with that. And it was great because the feeling that we thought is that, oh, this is the first time that we can call this electronic cash, because this is like you're handing cash to. So that's where the name comes from too, from the HandCash, handing cash.
So would you say that, I guess even that thought process and how you was viewing it, making this cash and making something that was easy to transact with, how did that initial take on Bitcoin then steer you through how this space has evolved over, say, the last 4 years? Because we went from, so 2015, there was one Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then we went to Bitcoin Cash, we've had Bitcoin Gold, we've had Bitcoin Diamond. We now have Bitcoin SV. I'll say Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin SV can be spoken about in the same breath.
Yeah.
The rest are very experimental, completely not even remotely close to
much
what
more
Bitcoin
different.
is.
Yeah.
So how have you managed that? I mean, so those conversations, I assume, between you and Rafa, how did they develop? And reason why I'm asking you this, because my development cycle and many of those here at Bitstocks, at one point, this might be a shock to people, I was a small blocker. At one point, I supported small blocks. I supported, I thought I supported the logic that was being proposed with Lightning. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that really and truly, Mike, I think you're just being lazy. I think you're outsourcing your thinking to these other people who you assume know better because their CV says so, right?
I totally agree.
And you need to, if you're going to build your company on this, and if you're going to sacrifice time with your family and your children for this, you owe it to everyone and your clients to look at this properly and come to your own conclusions.
Yeah.
And then that's what naturally led us on our journey where we're Bitcoin Cash and now Bitcoin SV. So how has that been for you guys?
So the first version of HandCash that we had, it worked on BTC, because we are very big believers on branding and that positioning matters, and they have the leading position in cryptocurrencies. But what we thought that this is not working for us, and we started looking at Lightning Network. But when you really dig into it, if it's not the same as you are trying to read something about the technology, that it can be, it's always influenced by whoever is saying it.
Yeah.
But try to implement it. Look at the documentation.
That is truth.
It was a mess. We didn't know how to start with that, and we also thought the only way that this is going to ever work, because if you try to reduce everything, you try to abstract all this technology in a way that you can explain to your mother. So once you do all this abstraction and you create kind of a map of thought about all the, the whole structure of Lightning Network in this case.
You get a lot of dead ends.
Yeah, the only way that makes case is if you have, our conclusion was, this will only work if we have high liquidity nodes. We have very few nodes, and everything's based on regulation and licensing. So I think that undermines the whole purpose of Bitcoin, which is that we can just embed this kind of technology in money, and every startup can create great apps that are connected to this network and create more density to the network, which is finally what you need in order for this network to prosper. And you are very right, and we reached the same conclusion about the network density, and it's something that you have to take into account. And with BTC, it was just a mess. Then we started looking at other technologies, and we were not convinced at all with point of proof of stake systems. So we decided for Bitcoin Cash at the time, and for the same reason, we then sided with BitcoinSV.
And that's the interesting thing that I've really found over the years, is that really and truly, if you just follow agenda, you can kind of get a clear picture as to what's really going on in this space. Because you and I are we're building companies, okay, and we're building real utility to the space, which means that we're building on top of this technology. We're building on top of Bitcoin, on top of BSV, which means that we have to understand how this works and how we can add value and how we can extract value from ultimately this platform. Now, if you're an exchange, you're not as concerned about that because this is about just trading and providing people the ability to trade.
You are not using the technology at all.
You're not.
You're just handling one kind of technology. I mean, you're just exchanging.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you're not using it.
Yeah, and if you're building a platform that you're trying to promote and push your platform and the sales spiel about your platform as opposed to its benefits to Bitcoin, again, that's your agenda is very aligned with your platform, which could just be self-serving your own pocket. 99 times out of 100, that's pretty much what's been going on, right? But it's what's interesting is when the companies who are saying, okay, I just want to build a cool application, right? That's it, nothing but a cool application. A perfect example of this in the bull market was CryptoKitties, right? They had a bunch of guys that just wanted to build a cool application and chose the wrong platform. And clearly, retrospectively, look back, clearly you guys chose the wrong platform.
Yeah.
And that's where it's quite dangerous, and also it really stifles and stunts the space, because as entrepreneurs, we shouldn't be getting involved in the politics of the platform. We should just think, okay, if this is a stable foundation, I just want to build my house on a stable foundation, as opposed to doing what we have done a lot in the earlier days at Bitstocks is you're looking for what that platform is, and then you're just burning time, whether it be research, then development, then research, and then development. It's just time. And this is an incredible amount of money as well, because as you know, and as I know, and anyone who's working in a tech company, not just a blockchain Bitcoin company, developers are very, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So
and also, if they are specialized in this kind of field, they're even more so. More difficult to find. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people in the SV community just really get. And we're just trying to build with as little distortion as possible. And that's what I think is really healthy about this ecosystem, this community. But before we go into that more, you mentioned Accenture and AI. So what type of artificial intelligence were they working on, or was you helping them or assisting them with? Is it AI, like general artificial intelligence? I very much doubt it was at Accenture. Or is this more just extreme automation?
It was kind of a research and development team. And we were trying to develop a solution based on, so years ago, we met by pure serendipity. We met a woman that she's the leading author of a new wave of artificial intelligence, which is qualitative AI. And her name is Teresa Scritch. She's very known in the field. And we were working with her for we're trying to apply this technology into other fields as a side job while we were doing this other startup that we've been working like 24 hours always. So Rafa, using this technology, created one of the top, if not the best DNA sampling methods using this qualitative AI. So we use this kind of technology to in a very short time and with very high accuracy to distinguish between some kinds of DNA. I don't remember the story. I just did some kind of UI for the program. But then she was hired by Accenture, and they wanted to apply this to autonomous driving. And we were for a time developing a few concepts there and trying to do demos, and it was very exciting because we were trying to do was, it was very contrarian to all this machine learning trend that it's out there. Yeah. Because you cannot solve everything with machine learning, and it's very expensive, and you need a lot of data, and every company has its own data. And so it's kind of tricky. So with qualitative autonomous driving, we thought it would be a hit. And it turns out that then we left the company because Accenture kind of lost the focus a little bit on that, and we lost a few clients because of internal fightings, so it was kind of was a mess. But it was nice that I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, Elon Musk did this presentation on autonomous driving, and the system they're using it's exactly the same that we were using.
Really?
Exactly the same thing that we were doing in this.
Because I've been speaking the concept of what Musk is doing with Tesla is brilliant. And I've been anticipating this for a while. It just made logical sense for them to step on Uber's toes with an autonomous alternative to Uber, because that's the weak point of Uber's model, right? But they're talking about potentially as high as $30,000 a year if you submit your car to the network for the full
even more,
year.
even more.
That's insane, because the lowest model's $38,000, if I'm not mistaken, the Model 3. I don't know if that has the right features you're going to need to be able to submit it to the network. Like, is it autonomous driving out of the box?
No. I think it's $6,000 upgrade if you buy it now. I think as it will be so profitable. The longer you take to make the decision, the more expensive it will get, because they know that it will pay off regardless. So if people buy a fleet of 20
That's what
cars,
I mean, right?
It's going to be like 20,000 or 30,000 to activate this kind of autonomous driving. That's basically it's half the salary of a driver or something.
Because that's where the logic goes straight away. It's like, bloody hell, why not just get 30 of these things and just submit them to the network and just let them do the thing?
So it's going to be a great investment.
We really are entering this new age of technological development. So with that, 5-year time frame, 10-year time frame, where do you see Bitcoin and this space going? And how do you see HandCash fitting into that?
So in 5 or 10 years,
you can make this as broad as you like. You don't need to make it contained to just Bitcoin and crypto, just the world in general and how these things are going to fit in.
I think the way the world is advancing, even if you take into account universal basic income, which is a concept that I don't really like, but I think it's unavoidable for the future, or the social system that they have in China, and also IoT, and the current perception on privacy, the current concerns of people with their privacy. I think it's unavoidable that microtransactions, be it with intrinsic value, with a monetary exchange or without it, I think the world is going to head into everything is going to be a microtransaction, and I think the only system and network that's positioned to have a stake in that future is Bitcoin. I think right now we are in we are kind of a crossroads, and the window is closing because there are many competing technologies with that. And even though we think that, and we are convinced that BitcoinSV is the best technology for this, it doesn't always the best product win the battle for adoption. In the end, is just if you can get enough traction. So we think we have a very great opportunity to do this, but to do that we need abstraction, because this technology is not, as a raw technology, is not very accessible. So we kind of, with HandCash, we are doing the same. We think that for the future of Bitcoin and HandCash, all we have to do is create enough abstraction for people to have access to as a customer or as a developer, to make it as easy as, if you want to tap into this technology, it has to be like an API that says, I want to send money from this guy to this guy, and that's it. And you need to get to that level of abstraction, so enough actors, companies, and investors can get in this network. But I think it's going to take basically that abstraction and try to hide this technology in the background. Don't make it. I think we don't have to promote Bitcoin per se. We have to promote the companies and products that you can create with Bitcoin, but not Bitcoin by itself.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
I think that's a way to go.
Yeah. So how does MetaNet apply with you guys? Because I see with HandCash and what you guys are doing and the introduction of MetaNet, I'm sitting back there, I'm thinking, surely this must be a very large area of interest and conversation, because you guys as a platform are very, very, very palatable to an idea such as MetaNet. And I'm super excited about what MetaNet can do and where it's going, because this is an opportunity to create the internet with a blank slate, built on top of IPv6, as opposed to the limitations that we have with IPv4 by ultimately having an apartment block building style appropriation of IP addresses, right? That's huge limitations to that. So I don't know how much you can or can't say about this. I don't know if I'm veering into areas
I can
where...
say it.
So yeah, just talk about MetaNet. How do you guys
so
see
I don't
HandCash
know
fit in?
if you saw, but we HandCash, we have a product that's called Cashboard. Okay, what it does is, well, it's basically an API to connect your identity and your funds, basically your wallet, to third-party apps and games. And so let's say the way we see ourselves evolving into is becoming kind of this kind of bridge between the virtual world, the real world, and everything that's connected between. I mean, we don't want to connect payment systems together. We don't want to connect people as such. We want just to
essentially be the glue between these different things.
And we want just to fade into the background. We don't want any friction. We just want to connect apps and payment systems and games and people, everything together with this technology. And I think if we make an if we can make it abstract enough and we can make it accessible enough from any kind of device, I think it's that. But in the MetaNet, what you will have is that you will have your identity to access all this information, and you will be having. You will be making payments and receiving payments all the time, because MetaNet is kind of the Internet of Value. So what we think is that what we want to be is to be that bridge between all these services and be transparent in the background and maybe be integrated into many products. It's not that we want actually HandCash as a product to be the main thing, but we are trying to develop this technology, and of course, for doing that, we need to develop this kind of closed ecosystem. So it allows us to iterate faster this technology, and once it's ready enough, it's mature enough, we can become more horizontal instead of vertical that we are doing right now.
And do you see anything in terms of the regulatory climate, regulatory environment that you guys feel like you need to keep paying attention to? Because with, I guess, the benefit of the approach of having a wallet service as opposed to something like what it is that we're doing, we have to have a very, very stringent regulatory process here, right? We have to be really, really on top of our game here because ultimately what it is that we are building is a Bitcoin banking ecosystem. So we're dealing with fiat, we're dealing with all of these different things, right? However, there is merit to just having a standalone wallet service just allows people to the benefits of basically the exact same thing is that many people out there are doing, just sending and receiving Bitcoins. But there was a conversation I was actually having with Craig, funnily enough, about, okay, so wallet services, more than likely aren't going to fall under the purview of regulation. It's most certainly not anytime soon. But what was interesting was perhaps potentially around helping users protect, store, and save their keys might be considered some way, shape, or form falling underneath the purview of regulation. Now, this is most certainly not written in stone. It's just a off-the-cuff conversation that me and Craig were having. But these are the interesting things and the things that people should be mindful of. I know that you guys clearly will be mindful of because you guys have your associations. But regulation really is something that every single facet of this community and this space needs to be paying attention to. Even if you think your model naturally just doesn't fit into regulation in any way, shape, or form, it is really one of the things that everyone should really be keeping an eye on. So is there anything that's come up recently or anything that's of concern with you guys that you're keeping your eye on? Or
not really. No, to be honest, we feel very safe with this. I mean, we have many offers on the table when we started, and many people approached us for investment, but there were only two players that we wanted to be invested with, and it was Enchain and Coinbase, because they were they are very transparent, and they're kind of the white kings of the space. So we are always pro-regulation, but we also know that we saw it in when we were in the sharing economy space for a while, that it's very important to be proactive and try to advance instead of waiting until the regulation is imposed on you. You can work together with regulators, and you can do things, to be more transparent, to ensure that you are not trying to hide people doing illegal activities and all that stuff. So we take that very seriously.
Yeah.
And for example, we will start implementing KYC, not very soon, but first you will start with, because you will be needed some level of KYC for purchasing Bitcoin inside the app. So you will have your phone number and email and whatever. So I think that's...
I guess also potentially for your Cashport application, if other services, let's say for instance Bitstocks, right, with our Gravity app, if we were looking at doing some form of integration, then the only way that person can interact with what it is that we are building is if we know who that person is.
Exactly. So we will have KYC, especially for certain levels of Cashport integration. Yeah. I mean, all information will be opt-in. Almost all information, aside from the phone number that it will be required because people are registering so many handles that we have to control that in some kind of way. And also because we found a nice way to go keyless. So it will be kind of a cool thing with the phone number and all stuff.
So what's the big updates that are coming? Right? What's the main things that people who are supporters of HandCash should be looking out for over the next 12 months? What's the main things?
Okay. So in a couple of months, we will be releasing our brand new apps, both for Pop and HandCash. Okay. They will be all based in a new framework that's called Flutter, that allows us to have just one code base and export it into many languages. And we can also have it for the desktop and website. So, but we haven't taken any decision on that yet. But the cool thing is that from now on, the apps will have feature parity since day one, and you will have the ability to top up with a credit card right from the wallet in just 2 steps. It will be super easy to do. We will have 2 new kinds of payment options, not options, but ways of payment, kind of UIs, let's say that new UIs for payment, which we think they are very cool and they are not implemented in this ecosystem. Will allow for new kind of... The thing is that what we want to do with HandCash is just not to replicate what's already out there in the current payment systems, but we want to demonstrate that you can create new experiences and new ways of using money with this new money. That's why we constantly are praising repeating this phrase, because we think this is a completely new money that allows us and many other companies to create new experiences, and we have to take care of that. It's not that I think we are not going to win the battle against the current systems by trying to replicate them, because we will always be behind. Yeah, so we don't want people to be using HandCash because they want to use Bitcoin. We want to create new apps and business models and things that matter that people can only access through Bitcoin. And maybe they are not even using Bitcoin, or maybe they don't notice that they are using Bitcoin. We can have stable coins payments that run on BSV. So everything is still a BSV transaction.
Experience that's so amazing that people ask, how is this even possible? And then the subject, I guess, of Bitcoin comes up. The reason why we could do this is because it was built on this technology and utilizing Bitcoin. So I guess that kind of rolls in nicely to next question I want to ask before we start wrapping things up. Most difficult challenges throughout your entrepreneurial career within this space, and also the best triumphs that you've experienced over the years working in this space. What's the positives? What's the negatives? The highlights? and the difficult things that you experience?
I think the negatives is navigating into the most difficult thing that I think we find is because there's always a curve of adoption. It's like a bell curve, it's called. Problem is that navigating through one level to another, it's tricky because and you want to be innovative, but also you don't want to scare your current users. So we've always been having to manage this kind of, we can't go far enough, but we cannot settle for legacy stuff. So that's an issue because if we right now we have many things in place and we would get rid of QR codes, we will at some point. But you cannot be so radical because people will stop using your wallet because at this point with this ecosystem you would be totally incompatible. So we are kind of having to build this ecosystem that we want to build around these new experiences while not scaring people away, while making it useful. So it's kind of having that balance. It's been very tricky because of people are very afraid of change always, no matter the sector. And especially if you're talking about money, there's going to be controversy when we introduce certain things like the new version of HandCash will not have keys at all. It's keyless. And that's going to be...
How are you going to do that? How are you going to...
threshold signatures and many stuff from Enchain. And so it's safe. Also, it's not every solution comes from the code. There are some solutions that come from the business space, doing business deals, doing... legal stuff that you have legal constraints. I mean, I don't want to give many more details on that.
Yeah.
But we are going to be making many decisions that people are going to be very uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
But we think is needed to push this technology forward in terms of, in the end, we don't want current users to be our future users because that would be a very small niche. What we want is these users to recommend to other users that are more regular people that will not be afraid of these things. And in the end, they will recommend to other people that... So what we want to do is advancing this curve in a way that it's gradual enough, but at the same time, it's innovative enough. So I think that's the challenge. And the best thing about working in the space is the amount of support that we have in this post-fork stage, because when we were in BCH, it was much more difficult to make these decisions because people would freak out. And we had to include many more features on the wallet, and it's very simple now, but it would have been much more simple if we hadn't had these constraints of trying to be legacy and people were very scared of things. And there was a lot of, for the small needs that we had with Bitcoin Cash, it was amazing the kind of bad press that we got from some legacy Bitcoiners. And at the same time was good because that differentiates us from the herd.
Yeah.
But it's been great going to the current meetups with BSV, to the CoinGeek conferences, and we feel that we all have what we share is this kind of humble and respect towards what Bitcoin really is, and we understand this technology and how it can change the world because. You can. First, we thought it was just a financial product, but when you see the fork and you see all the human motivations behind some decisions, like the goal at the checkpoints. You see all this stuff, that's very contrarian to what. Not contrarian, it's very ironic because these people were defending one thing, doing another in the sake of just retaining control and retaining the brand and the network effect And all those things, all those factors, the network effect, the branding, that's not in the white paper.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting to see how it plays out in real world, the fork. Mainly because of that, because then you see that Bitcoin is kind of a game. It's much more like Jumanji.
It's literally
It's much more like Jumanji.
Yeah, I see where you're going with it, because like anything that creates this type of reaction, I think a great example would be religion. You put religious text in the middle of this table, and you throw 100 people in this room, it's subject to interpretation 100 different ways.
Exactly.
Okay? And the white paper of just the tech equivalent of 9 beautifully constructed pages, it's only 9 pages as well.
Has to be simple, yeah.
9 pages, and from that, ideologies were built.
Yep.
Businesses were built, and agendas around these ideologies and these businesses were solidified. And then you throw away what this should be about, which is trying to really understand what is written here. Let's dig deeper, because clearly 9 pages ain't going to contain the whole, right? Let's really, 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 really dig deeper. But when you're clouded with agenda, maybe you don't want to look so deep, because you've now built your business and it served you well. And the whole thing, that's what made you read these 9 pages in the first place, economic freedom and sovereignty for the world, or this anarchist undertone to a lot of the crowd in the community. Their actions, I would argue, are completely against what they claim the ideal is to be, which is bringing economic and freedom to the world, because that is a byproduct of what Bitcoin is. I would argue how Bitcoin does that is through transparency and through sight. You provide a truly transparent time system, because I see Bitcoin as a time ledger. I don't even necessarily see it as much as a blockchain. I see this as a time ledger. And that is a stamp of truth that can be referenced back to for a variety of different use cases and different applications. If you just look at that from a government standpoint, okay, a government building their infrastructure on top of a transparent public ledger, there are many people in government who will fight to do that.
Yep.
Who will fight to do that, fight to have freedom for the people, and fight to have transparency and accountability, because they believe in the oath that they took by serving the people, that they are servants of the people. There are many people in government who have that stance. Sure. But then you have the smaller factions in government, which unfortunately, with how the world has been run up until this point, have consolidated majority of power, who will look at a system like this
as a threat.
That's a threat. But we'll take the banner of what this threat is, and we will push and we'll promote this banner, the ideology of what this is. But behind the scenes, because no one else is doing the research to understand the real power of this text, we will co-opt it, we will corrupt it, we will. And
I'm sure that has happened. I mean, with the Blockstream thing, I mean, if you understand a little bit about how branding and marketing works, there's a very professional work behind that.
Yeah.
And it's very structured. And their agendas, their narratives that they use, everything's very controlled. Everything's scripted. It's blatantly obvious.
But for the right people in the space, for the entrepreneurs who are looking at this space, conjuring up ideas and wanting to enter this space, what I really want both of our examples to be right now is to not detract or deter people away from a lot of the negative conversations that are happening on Twitter, whether it's Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, irrespective, right? Just if you're interested in this space, just apply your own research and actually for yourself look at what the power on those 9 pages are, and just go on your journey, go on your rabbit hole journey, because
unfortunately, very, very few people are going to do that.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that we should do better is branding ourselves and the controlling the narrative. if you don't control your own narrative, someone's going to, if you don't tell your story, someone's going to tell your story for you. So, and that's something that happened with a fork. And I was very pissed off because of that. Because at one point, Amaury was writing our story, our narrative. And we end up being BSV. And we shouldn't have been BSV and adopting the name, because that was the setup that they created for us. You know, the fork thing and everything that we didn't intend to fork off.
Yeah.
It was just another update, and you want to follow it, follow it.
But there's two ways of looking at it. At the first, exactly the same as you. I was pissed off. But then I saw this as an amazing opportunity for a variety of different reasons.
It is.
One is we just had the opportunity to clear away a lot of the distortion from what the real people who understand what Bitcoin is. And we now have clear headroom, right? We can just focus and we can just really, really focus and build. But also, I guess this is more of a selfish thing. All of the arguments happened over the last few years. This isn't just the last 12 months. All of these arguments from, I guess, SegWit 2x, Blockstream, 1 megabyte blocks, big blocks, all of this malarkey that kicked off, I guess, I say it got heated 2014, 2015. It really started to get heated. What I done with that time and when everything was up in the air is I used that time of everybody arguing to step back, switch on my own little lamp in my own room, in my own office at home, and just read and study and study and study and study.
Yeah.
And that has now afforded us the opportunity to, I would argue now, even though we haven't launched our Gravity service yet, very much be ahead of the curve with where this space is ultimately going. I know you guys done the same, SentB done the same. Basically, pretty much everyone in the BSV
we will have
community.
all different conclusions, and that's good because we will try different approaches to how to get there or to get somewhere else. But that's I think that's healthy.
Yeah. So I guess, okay, let's wrap up. And before we do wrap up, how do people get in contact with you? You said you're going to be at CoinGeek, right? But you're going to be on a panel.
Yeah, we will be both panelists, yeah. I founded with the developers, and I will be another panel. I don't know which one, with whom, but
cool. So yeah, just let our viewers know. What's the best way to get in contact with you? Twitter? Is it Facebook?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Agut, or just enter our website, handcash.io, and you can send us an email or hate mail or whatever. No, we don't get so many hate mail, really. And we are very proud of our users because we are relying on them for recommendation. That one thing that we learned over the years is that you ultimately cannot buy your users. Even if you spend a ton of money on Facebook or on advertisement, you have to have people that stick with you because of the why. It's not the what, it's the why we have to get on board with your company and with your mission. And I think we have very faithful users, and it shows if you see our weekly active users, every single week has been higher than the previous one without any advertisement, and only relying on creating a good product and asking people just to share it and making it easy for them to share it with their friends and family.
Totally agree. Connection is everything.
Yeah.
Connection is absolutely everything. So on that note, peace, love, and light. All the best, guys. Wish you all the best. Take care.
Bye.